Good afternoon, Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Friday, June the 3rd, 2016. A look at the National Hurricane Center homepage. We see that we have Bonnie, Tropical Depression Bonnie, still sitting out here to the east of North Carolina, the rest of the mid-Atlantic states moving away. And now we have this area down in the Caribbean Sea. X marks the spot, and we'll be watching this region closely over the next few days. This is what Bonnie looks like on visible satellite. Limited convective banding with it, leaving the Gulf Stream, which runs up roughly through here. So it's going to be moving away from the Gulf Stream and the warmer water that was back to the west of it. So it probably won't become a tropical storm. Still has a chance, but time is running out. Now, going back to the National Hurricane Center page here, this is the outlook for the system in the Caribbean Sea, and as you can tell, there's some energy starting to accumulate down in that region. A favorable area this time of year, generally speaking. This is the 5-day outlook for that area. That energy moves towards the Yucatan Peninsula, and then the whole mess of energy, and it is definitely a mess. I'm going to show you that in the GFS model in just a moment. All of that starts to move off towards the Florida Peninsula and eventually out into the Atlantic over time. So let's take a look at what we have. This is the wide satellite shot from the University of Wisconsin. Here's our energy coming together in the Caribbean. The very small and weak tropical depression Bonnie. Unfortunately, the upper level low and associated surface moisture and rainfall over Texas continuing. And then there's a pretty substantial Saharan air layer outbreak coming off of Africa right now with very stable air. This is not the area to be looking this time of year anyway, but I thought I would just point that out. The wind shear still pretty high as you would expect in June. Westerly winds, trophy conditions for the most part, cyclonic flow in the atmosphere, most of the tropical Atlantic, and even in the subtropics, everything's just not conducive for development for the time being. But maybe this region in here will start to change over the next few days and allow for a little bit more in the way of enhanced upward motion to the atmosphere, and that's just a fancy way of saying better conditions for development. The vorticity signature at 850 millibars, here's our depression showing up nicely as a round circle of energy. Juxtapose that, contrast that to the elongated energy coming out of South America towards the Caribbean Sea, unless and until we see this develop a more rounded appearance, then it's not really going to do much. And it may change over time. We'll look at that again in just a moment on the latest computer model forecast. Certainly the water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico warm enough. Anything in this sort of teal color here, and then the greens, 82, 83 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are talking 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. So plenty of warm water to take advantage of. That certainly isn't lacking. But the organization, I think, just isn't going to be there. And we can look at that here. This is the most recent run of the global forecast system. And I'm going to run through this over the next 5 days, every 3 hours. First of all, you see this enhanced moisture with the pesky low pressure area over Texas. This just has to end. These people have really dealt with a lot there. And I am worried that we develop something out of the Caribbean or Gulf and it comes in here before all is said and done, and this area has a chance to dry out. Not going to worry about it today because there is nothing on the horizon of that nature, but they are a sitting duck there for sure, and certainly no pun intended at all. A very serious situation there. So let's look for what's going on down here with this system over the next few days. And as you'll see as I step through the frames here, moving through to tomorrow, weak low pressure starts to develop here in the Gulf of Honduras, just to the east of Belize, with strong southeasterly flow converging into the area. So it has the makings of trying to become something, but the upper level winds just aren't going to be very supportive. And as you can see over time, 54, 57 hours going on out to 72 hours. Low pressure does develop, but look, all of the precipitation for the most part is on the east side of it, and it's going to have sort of that comma shape with an exposed low-level center more than likely. Tropical storm force winds at the surface will not be a surprise, that's for sure. So this could be considered a tropical storm. Warm core in nature, tropical storm force winds, organized convection, and a well-defined low-level center. Those are all probably going to be there, but it's going to be lopsided, and therefore the opportunity for it to get strong really isn't there. Not impossible, but I don't see that happening, so it shouldn't be much of a wind and surge event. That being said, you folks along the coast of Florida here, down to the Keys, you're a very vulnerable area to storm surge, and so 40 to 50 mile per hour wind, onshore flow, could be a problem. I'm just throwing that out there, not forecasting this to become 50 miles per hour, but just keep that in mind. You can get a couple of feet of inundation, surge flooding, high waves, etc. from a, quote, weak tropical storm. The other thing that sticks out, you see this blob of red in here, and this is 72 hours. Let's keep moving through the frames. All of that mess heads towards Florida. Looks like trying to get in towards the Nature Coast area. Tampa points north. But this steady onshore flow, the jet stream winds almost going across the top of it at 200 millibars, way up in the atmosphere, very strong. So the shear profile is going to be high. The possibility of severe weather here, tornadic winds, downbursts. You know, it could be a named tropical storm, but it's going to act like what we see in these El Nino years when we get these strong winter storms traversing across the Gulf, except there won't be any cold air behind it. You know, probably tropical in nature, but it's going to seem like more of a severe weather event. And heavy rain, severe weather, coastal flooding issues in some isolated areas. Going to be a mess next week, that is for sure. And then as we move through time here at 96 hours, the low jumps across the peninsula. And notice how everything is just strung out. See, I can hardly say it. It's just strung out over a large geographic area, kind of pulled apart like cotton candy. And that's also indicative of a system that is not very well organized. Strong upper level winds, stringing it out over the eastern Gulf into the western Atlantic. You know, something to certainly pay attention to, but we don't see any indication that this would be a strong tropical storm or a hurricane. But again, I want to say one more time, that doesn't mean, oh, it'll be all fine and dandy and there's nothing to worry about. The heavy rain, the severe weather, the coastal flooding issues, those will come into play, and I will talk about each of those more as this starts to unfold when I look at the closer area with National Weather Service products in the coming days. I'll spell it all out for you. All right, that's it from me for today. Have a great rest of your Friday. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com, and as always, thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with another video blog for you then.